in order to help people to understand what our real rights are. So this is going live on YouTube right now. I don't know if I can keep it up on YouTube. I may have to put it to Rumble in order to keep this thing, as you guys know how YouTube likes to do with me when it comes to getting out truth. I need you guys to please share this all over. This is going to be very important. We have to deal with this so-called Arms Act in order to show the people what is really going on, because a lot of people are stressed out and worried about this so-called Arms Act. And what's going to happen is people are going to be tricked into unlawfully giving up their protection. And I don't believe that that is legitimate or right. So once again, I wish for everyone to share this video. We should have some very important people watching this. We are going to deal with some serious matters of law and make sure that we put a stop to these things that are going on. Now, if you are watching us, can you please say hello so I know that you can hear me well, everything is okay. Can you guys hear me well? Everybody, please get this shared out. I'll give a minute for everybody to get on. This is going to be one of the most bombshell revelations that you have ever seen when it comes to the rights of the people to bear arms. We have had many people lie to us. We've had many people give out information that was not real law. Yes, sir, Brian. We have had real people who have stood over time to deal with some of these issues, but it's time that we deal with this issue completely, thoroughly, and we really look at the law. Now, what has happened with many attorneys around the nation is that attorneys in many cases have been taught the law by omission. So those who were controlling the teaching of lawyers decided to start bringing down the amount of information that they share with the lawyers. And then that allows for many administrative acts to happen or come forth that are based on not the real law of the land, but it is based off of commercial activity. Now, there are a lot of people who come around and they talk about commerce this, commerce that, UCC this and UCC that. That's none of that. This is none of that. What we're going to do is show clearly how the law is being broken by hiding the real truth in law. And we're going to go down to the constitutions. We are going to look at the fundamental principles of law, which created America. Like the whole lawful basis of America comes from, you really won't have to, Christopher. It really comes from the fundamental principles of law, which most attorneys don't know. So what we're going to do is take you to the actual real law. And I need you guys to share this everywhere, because this is another one of those instances like we had with the UAW when they were trying to suppress everybody and make them take certain things that they didn't want to take or they would lose their job. We stood up against them, and by God, we shut that crap down across the nation. You look at the federal mandate, we went after that. Some of our students dropped affidavits inside of the federal court case. The judge mentioned the affidavits, and you see that that was shut down. We also sent notice during the whole the OSHA Act so-called mandates. We sent notices to Kavanaugh directly, and we dealt with some of the things that the law says that no attorney would ever show us. Jackie, I don't know what you're asking about cash for the private. We're talking right now. So if you're here, I guess you're paying attention for free, like all national issues that are important. But attorneys will many times omit the truth. So a lot of people do say things like, shall not be infringed for arms, but do we really understand the complete story behind this shall not be infringed and why it is said in the United States Constitution and what it means? Because it seems that a lot of government officials don't really understand what shall not be infringed means. And it makes sense that they don't understand because in school, they didn't really teach us anything but part of the federal constitution. The truth is that most of our liberties and rights exist in the state constitution and they don't show us. Now, because they don't show us, it makes it way easier to trample our rights. But remember, the United States simply has an agreement with every single state where they accepted our state constitutions, which means that everything in our state constitutions are guaranteed by the federal. So the federal understands when we have certain rights that are expressly written in the state constitution, they accepted it already, and they know not to interfere with the rights of the people in the states. But they're not teaching the people this. So they're coming out with this idea, trying to tell you that they have the power to stop you from having certain weapons. The crazy thing is, the government servants get their authority to have certain weapons, even in the military, because the people grant it. If we look in the United States Constitution, we'll see where we granted them the ability to be able to have a military and the federal. Who wrote that? Just go back to the preamble of the United States Constitution, and it's going to tell you that it's we the people. So if we the people in the states granted authority to the federal in order to exist, and we tell them what they have the power to do, you're going to find something very, very, very sneaky that's being hidden. See, I want you guys to pay close attention to the authority that we give the Fed in the United States Constitution. I'm going to pray real quick and then we're going to get going. Remind me what I just said. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this blessed and wonderful country. We thank you for letting us live in the land of the free, Father. We thank you for blessing our forefathers to be so wise as to use your word and your counsel to create the law, Father, which stands and binds all government servants so that we can find it and easily go back to it and test it against your word and use it, Father, as a tool to correct those or reprove those who would do wrong, Father, as our servants. Father, we ask that you bless everybody under the sound of my voice, that you bless the nation, that you help us to understand how to stand, Father. And with this, we just thank you for all you do, and we thank you for all the victories you have given us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, now we're going to get ready to drop some extreme smoke on this stuff. Now, first thing we're going to hit is the United States Constitution so we can get an understanding of what powers we gave them. Now, a lot of times people tell you that the government has the authority to tell the people what to do. The government has the authority to do this or that. What's really happening is they are teaching you the law backwards. The government doesn't give anybody any power when it comes to the people. The people actually created the United States government. And if you don't believe me, let me just clearly show you, right? Let me know if you guys can see the screen. We're looking at the preamble of the United States Constitution. Preamble, we're looking at Cornell Law School, Legal Information Institute. Now let's clearly look together and see what we have been blessed with. Preamble. We, the people of the United States. So let's stop, guys, and understand that the government of the United States could not exist by itself. It had no power. It had no seats for office. It had no authorities delegated. We, the people, had to come together as common people in the states and decide to create a more perfect union and create this thing called the United States. So let's just understand that they didn't create us. They don't give us any power. They could not exist without us. And we decided to create a United States. And I'm going to show you the purpose why we did it from your forefathers. Don't believe any attorney. Let's just look at what's written. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. So there was already a union. We just decided we need a more perfect union. establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. We wanted to make sure there was a military so all the states could have security quickly and easily because it came from a common source. Promote the general welfare, not your private welfare, general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. See, liberty is the ability to do what you wish to do as long as you're not harming another without restraint or government intrusion. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So we created the Constitution for the United States of America. We granted authority. Now, in order to understand this, we have to understand how trust or associations are created. Anybody who has an association or trust will clearly understand what's happening here. But for the others, we have to make sure you understand. So when you create an association or a trust, and it's an express trust, we have to expressly tell what powers and authorities we are giving to the government servants or the servants inside of the trust. And we also have to tell what rights the beneficiaries have. So the only powers that government has in a trust is the powers or are the powers that the people give them, right? So let's look deeper. This is going to get heavy. In the United States Constitution, we give the power to the legislature in Article 1, that's here on the page, Section 8. So let's click it. Now, we're going to see some of the things that we give them power to do. And this is going to come down. I'm going to show you guys clearly this gun bill is a bunch of bull, a bunch of garbage. Don't trust them because they're lying to you. And when we force them to show us exactly what they mean and what their words are saying is going to show quickly that they are lying. Watch this. The Congress shall have the power. Now, guys, understand that we, the people, your forefathers that are just like you, regular people, have decided to let the government have some powers. And they said that Congress should have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare for the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Now, watch what else they can do. Watch this. Pay close attention. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. Now, here's where it's going to get super heavy and super deep. I want you to remember this and keep it in your mind because you are getting ready to see the demise of any type of statute or law that wants to even act like it has the power to take the rights from the people. It is going to fall by God. Now, watch this. We gave Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with Indian tribes. Now, the question I have for you guys is, what did that leave out? When it says you can regulate commerce with the foreign nations and among the several states and the Indian tribes, it is speaking clearly of certain groups of people. Foreign nations is going to be foreign commerce, doing business from nation to nation, right? So when you guys go out and buy a gun, what does that have to do with different nations? And among the several states, if you buy a gun in your state for yourself, what does that have to do with other states? And with Indian tribes? I'm going to take a guess and say 99% of you are not Indian tribes. So if we granted them the power to regulate commerce just means to make it regular, to make sure that things are equal, like God said in the Bible, equal scales, justice, equity, not cheating, right? So real quick, if you have the power to regulate commerce, and this is an express trust, the Constitution is an express trust. We tell them in express written consent what they have the power to do. Did this say that you have the power to prohibit commerce? Did this say you have the power to prohibit commerce, stop commerce, shut down commerce. It didn't say that. It didn't say that. So one thing that we will also understand is we gave them another authority. We allowed them to make rules, and this is where all these executive orders come from. It says to make rules for the government and regulations of the land and naval forces. Quick question. Did that say regulation of the people? Did that say regulation of the people? So here's all this authority we gave them. It's approximately 19 things. All these things here. In DC, they get to make legislation over the rights and all this stuff of people, but we're not in DC. Watch this. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles. Oh, okay. 10 miles square, not 10 square miles. It's totally different. 10 miles square. So they got DC, this little place that's 10 miles square, and they can write legislation over them in whatever matter necessary, but not over the 50 states. Watch this. As made by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other need for buildings, federal places where they store weapons. But notice it did not say they can make law over the people, right? So when we deal with real law, we need to understand what it is that we are talking about. We need to deal with what they have power to do. So I just showed you that they have the power to deal with commerce between Native Americans, commerce between foreign nations, and commerce, right, with among the several states, so from state to state. Now, we need to understand commerce. See, when you are taking something and you are using it for financial benefit, then what happens is that you are doing a business which the people have to give you authority to do. But there's a totally different type of rights that the government does not like to tell you about. And this is why most of you on this video right now don't know what your state constitution says. Because the government, federal, took on every constitution and certified it so that they say that they accept it as legitimate, and they agree to not trespass against the rights of the people. Now, in law, guys, we are supposed to come before the government often and teach them fundamental principles of law. The fundamental principles of law actually show them what it is that they're supposed to do. Now, the problem is if we don't know our state constitutions, which they have not shown us, how do we keep them in line if we don't know how to frequently bring them to the fundamental truths of law? Let's see this in Arizona State Constitution. Text of Section 1, Fundamental Principles. A frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the security of individual rights and the perpetuity of free government. If you want the government to continue to function as servants rather than your slave masters, you have to take them to the fundamental principles of law, because there's always some slick, conniving man that is looking to deceive you when it comes to the law. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between commerce and the people which exist in the private realm. In the law, people are going to laugh at me for this because they haven't got taught the law, but then once I show it to you, you won't be able to laugh. When it comes to law, the people have not been taught the difference between the public realm and the private realm. Our forefathers created what is called a republic with the United States, and the 50 states are all republics. Republics is a compound word. Res, which means thing, matter, or affair. And then the word publica, those things that are open to the public. Anything that is in the private realm is outside of the jurisdiction that we gave the government in a republic. So everything that deals with your private health, your private welfare, your private rights for liberty and justice, where you decide to go to church, if you decide to go to church or not, what kind of weapon you decide to have, that is actually private and deals with your private affairs. Now, people are going to say, David, that doesn't make sense. My lawyer told me. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what your lawyer never shows you. I'm going to go to Article 2, Section 8 of the Arizona Constitution and just question you about this. Right here it says, no person shall be disturbed in his private affairs. See, there's a such thing of private ownership and private affairs where the government actually is not supposed to interfere. And this does not just mean in your house. I'll prove it. No person shall be disturbed in his private affairs or his home invaded without authority of law. So if there is no authority in law, starting with the state constitution, then there is no authority to do it in a statute. So if we never grant you authority to interfere with our private affairs, then you, as the government, can't have the power to do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that these statutes that you guys are reading are created to trick you. Notice how much the attorneys for the federal legislature talks about you don't need that gun to hunt. You don't need that gun for sport shooting. What they're trying to do is trick you out of the jurisdiction that you hold and get you to believe that you're under a jurisdiction that they hold. And I'm going to prove it. But let's start here. How is it that in Arizona, it says this? The right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired. Shall not be impaired. You can't impair me from getting arms to defend myself or the state. Now, for some reason, the government has a big problem in the federal with hiding information like that. I'm not going to the Second Amendment because the Second Amendment was created by the people after we already had states. What we need to understand is, what does the state constitutions say about the rights of people to carry weapons? Is the government supposed to be regulating the people? Or are the people supposed to be regulating the government? See, I don't give a darn about keeping a gun for sport shooting and hunting and game and trap life and all this stuff. I want to deal with the rights of the people that was already declared in the states that the government agreed to. Watch this. That the people of this state have the inherent sole and exclusive right to regulate the internal government and police thereof. It is our duty to regulate them. They are trying to trick you. And to alter and abolish their constitution and form of government whenever they may deem it necessary, not every 4 years. See, the gentleman, the governor from Florida, DeSantis, just showed you guys that when an attorney general does not want to prosecute, or a district attorney or whoever it was, he shut him down on the spot and said, you can't, you're suspended. If you won't follow the law that you swore an oath to protect, your anus is gone. That simple. That simple. You're not in the public because you go out in the front door. You still have private affairs. That's law. Power of the people over internal affairs. So if it says that the people have the right to regulate their internal government and police thereof, which that word comes from policy, the policies that they make, and to alter and abolish their constitution. Guys, if we could alter and abolish our constitution at will, and from the state on up, because the one who creates the document has the power to change it. So if we created the state constitutions and we created the federal constitution, who in the world tells us that we have to wait for the government to decide that they want to follow it? It's trickery. But we have the power to alter and abolish our form of government whenever we may deem it necessary to their safety and happiness. If you guys aren't happy and you don't feel safe, do you have to continue to deal with this foolishness where people are attacking your rights with everything they can from every different angle? Right? We don't have to stand for it. All we have to do is come together as a people and decide that we're tired and we want to fix it. That simple. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at some of the things that the government has guaranteed the people of. Watch this. That the right of every citizen to keep and bear arms, ammunition, and accessories typical to the normal function of such arms in defense of his home, person, family, and property, or when lawfully summoned in the aid of the civil power, shall not be questioned. See, a lot of y'all are hearing that people say that they could take your guns away. And then the first thing you do is say, oh my gosh, I got to give up my weapons and I got to do what they tell me to do because they said that we have to do this. But we know darn well that it is oppression and tyranny and foolishness. When BLM and Antifa ran across your states, throwing bricks in your houses, first question you got to ask is, where did these low-life bums get the ability to get gas money to get into your neighborhoods? And then you need to ask, who the freak paid for buses for them to throw bricks through your windows? And then I want you to think, the same people who are busing them into your neighborhoods and dropping bricks off with city cones around them, they're not trying to protect you, and you shouldn't let them protect you. You have a liberty interest in protecting your life, property, and freedom. No government official can go against that. And what they're doing is they're trying to use racial games where they say you're a white supremacist if you like guns. You're this and that, and they're trying to get every other culture to stop you from standing up for your rights, where people are trying to attack your life, liberty, and property. Now, I'm going to show you guys how we knock down this complete foolish gun legislation, how it's a hoax. It never had anything to do with what you thought it did. And I'm not going to just say it. I am going to prove it. But let's continue. Text of section 2. Absolute and arbitrary power over the lives, liberty, and property of free man exists nowhere in a republic, not even in the largest majority. Listen, I don't give a darn how many people are voting saying that they took your right away to have certain weapons and clips and stuff like that. I'm telling you, they were not voting on what you think they were voting on. They were voting on something else. See, they make you think that they made a law to cover all people, to say that, look, people, you can't have this as a free man that is a lawful person. You can't have this. This is the trickery that they use. Now, I'm going to show you something in Kentucky Constitution that tells you that anything you have a right or liberty in the state constitutions, anything, the government has absolutely zero authority to interfere with it or take it away. Let's look at text of section 26. To guard against the transgression of the high powers which we have delegated, we declare that everything in this Bill of Rights is accepted out of the general powers of government. I hope y'all understand what that meant. And shall forever remain inviolate. So what is this saying? This is saying that anything that we put that is our right in the constitutions, and all people have equal rights in every state. So any one of you see anything in one of these bills or declarations of rights in any state, it's all your rights too. Now watch what it says. And all laws contrary thereto or contrary to this Constitution shall be void. So anytime anybody writes any statute that says that they could take away any power in any state constitution, they've lied to you. Now, you don't want to believe me because I'm a nobody. But what you do want to do is see if I can prove what I say. So we're going to look at the case called Miranda versus Arizona, 384 US 436. It was 1966. We're going to click on case. We're going to go down to page 491, and we're going to see if I'm telling the truth, that if there is a right that's secured in the Constitution reserved by the people, the government has no legislative power over it at all, and they also can't make any rules against it. So all these executive orders, all these so-called legislative acts that say we can take somebody's guns from them, guys, do you not realize that they didn't tell you who the statute was talking about when it said that they could stop somebody from having guns? See, they'll play and say, Jim Jordan, who I love, he'll say sometimes, well, you can't do this because you'll make guns in people's houses, just the people, unlawful. Jim Jordan, you're kind of not telling the whole truth. You can't make guns in people's houses unlawful if you never had the authority to restrict the private rights of the people to have any weapon they wanted. You may have lied and act like you had that authority, but David Jose is going to show everybody that you're lying. Here we go. Miranda versus Arizona, page 491. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them, get rid of them. The legislature has zero power to write a statute that would go against your right. So because they can't write a statute that goes against your right, what they do is they write statutes and make them look like they're talking about you. And they let the attorneys go out and lie and say they're talking about you, but they're really not talking about you. Now, perfect example. What I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about how we gave them authority to deal with interstate commerce, and we gave them the authority to deal with international commerce. But I'm going to blow you guys' mind really quick with just the Gun Control Act of 1968. Because what we have to do, and this is Public Law 90-618, is we have to look at the original legislation, guys, written by the legislature, in order to make sure that we understand exactly what is being talked about. They will trick you into believing that it's talking about the people when it's not. And I'm going to prove it. Watch this. An act to amend Title 18, United States Code, to provide for better control of the interstate traffic. Whoa. Interstate traffic? Okay, so guys, those of you who are buying weapons as one of the people for your own protection, it was guaranteed that you have the right and that it cannot be impaired or infringed. So let's see if this is talking about you. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assemble, that this act may be cited as the Gun Control Act of 1968. Title 1, State Firearms Control Assistance. Here we go. Section 101. You can't even go a page into this thing before you realize how much they're liars. Watch this. The Congress hereby declares, you got to understand their original intent and purpose because it foils every single act after it. The Congress hereby declares that the purpose of this title is to provide support, not order the federal, state, and local law enforcement, to provide support to federal, state, and local law enforcement officials in their fight against crime and violence. Oh, okay, so you made a statute to go against crime and violence, which would be for criminals or people who you give a license to bring weapons in the country or in the states, right? Watch this. Now, what we got to do, guys, is know exactly what these things are not, because this will show us that they've been lying this whole time about this law and taking weapons away from you because you didn't know. Let's see if Dave Jose is lying. And it is not the purpose of this title to place any undue or unnecessary federal restrictions, see that regulation, or burdens on who? Law-abiding citizens with respect to the acquisition, how you get guns, possession, what the frick you got in your house. You remember they told you, oh, if you got these guns in your house, it makes them illegal right away. Shut the freak up, you're lying. Watch this. Or use of firearms appropriate to the purpose of hunting, trap shooting, target shooting, personal protection. Oh, so you didn't mean to make any of these statutes to have anything to do with any weapon that any man or woman would have for their personal protection or any other lawful activity. Could that be a lawful activity like having any type of weapon that's necessary to fight off a whole bunch of people that are trying to destroy the state or the people, or dropping off bricks and guns for people to come ransack people's houses and then they won't prosecute? Those types of activities? Yeah. Watch this. And that this title is not intended to discourage or eliminate the private ownership. See, there's a difference between commerce ownership to sell weapons to people all over the place as a business and having private ownership of weapons because you can't interfere with people's private affairs. You don't have the authority to even tax people's private stuff. You may act like you do, but we'll see. Intended to discourage or eliminate the private ownership or use of firearms by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes, like protecting your freaking self. So if the original statute that they're using to say that they're controlling firearms tells you that it wasn't the purpose of the legislature to make a statute for them to take your firearms, how are they amending the statute and making a different purpose? They really don't want to play the games, y'all. I want y'all to look at that again. It tells you that this statute was not created to interfere with the private property of the people, private ownership of weapons, personal protection, target shooting, trap shooting, hunting, whatever it is. This was not created to interfere with the rights of the people. So they wrote in the statute that they used to start all this bull that it was not meant to do this, so that when attorneys change it later, if you don't go back and look and see, you got a problem. You got a problem if you don't go back and look and see. Now let's just look at definitions, unlawful acts, licensing. Look, definitions. The term person, does that mean one of the people in the states? No. Let's see. The term person and the term whoever include any individual. That's not an individual man or woman. That's an individual business entity, because the rest of them are business entities. Let's see. Corporation, company, association, firm, partnership, society, or joint stock company. Those are the ones who have to get the right to do this by statute, not the people. Let's go deeper. The term interstate and foreign commerce. You remember I showed you on Article 1, Section 8, they have the power to deal with interstate and foreign commerce, not the property and the rights of the people and their ability to possess property. Watch this. Includes commerce between any place in a state and any place outside of that state, or within any possession of the United States, not including the Canal Zone or the District of Columbia, but such term does not include commerce between places within the same state. So if you freaking go buy a gun in your state, it wasn't even talking about you. But through any place inside of that state. The term state includes the District of Columbia, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and possessions of the United States, not including Canal Zone. That's not the 50 states. That's not the 50 states. It told you what it includes. The term firearm means any weapon, including a starter gun, which will or is designed or may be readily available to convert it to expel a projectile, by which action of an explosive, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any firearm muffler or firearm But it already told you that this does not apply to private people who want to own a weapon. It does not apply to private people. So if it does not apply to private people, why does it matter what the freak they're talking about when they're trying to go after business entities who are selling them for a profit? Let's see. Let's look at number 11. 10. The term manufacturer means any person. What does person mean? Individual entity, cooperative entity, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, trust, that's government created, right? All of those entities were the ones that were listed above. It told you that this did not apply to the people. It clearly said it was not applying to the people. So if it says it's not applying to the people, manufacturer, dealer, and all this stuff does not apply to you. Look at number 10. Means any person engaged in the business of manufacturing firearms or ammunition for the purpose of sale or distribution. This has nothing to do with somebody who is getting a gun for private use, and these entities are not allowed to restrict lawful people from having access to weapons either. They just tricked us. Let's go deeper. And the term licensed manufacturer, see, notice the ones that they can license by statute, means any person licensed under the provision of this chapter. So this just allowed them to create a licensing ability for entities doing commerce, not the people. Number 11, the term dealer means any person engaged in business of selling firearms at wholesale or retail. Any person engaged in a business of repairing firearms or making or fitting special barrels, stocks, or trigger mechanisms to firearms. Or any person who is a pawnbroker. The term licensed dealer means any dealer who is licensed under the provision of this chapter. Well, guess what happens if you're not licensed under the provisions of this chapter, or you are one of the people working with another one of the people to provide weapons for your own defense? They can never interfere unless you're breaking the law, like you're just killing people or something. But lawful people can freaking get as many weapons as they want. They just lied to us. Look at number 9. The term importer, foreign commerce, once again, means any person engaged in the business of importing or bringing firearms or ammunition into the United States for purposes of sale or distribution. And the term licensed importer means any such person licensed under the provisions of this chapter. Notice none of this said the people. None of it. And every bit of it deals with the end use. If you're using it to sell to everybody, then what that means is you're doing interstate commerce. If you're using it to sell within the several states, that's interstate commerce. Foreign commerce was the first one, I'm sorry, if you're importing. So what we need to understand is, and we're going to look at Arizona Constitution, I'm going to show you guys the difference between if you have property that is household goods that is not used for commerce and property that is commercial stuff that's used to move forward some special type of commercial business. Now, they laugh at people in the law world who say this, but what I like to do is go to the dang law and explain exactly what the freak I'm talking about and dare anybody in the whole world to challenge it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that the people are in a totally different class than these ones who are doing commerce or even using something for commerce. See, the government should not be taxing you when you're using something for the private use of the people as a household good. Now, this is going to sound crazy that I'm telling you that there's things that are outside of commerce because we haven't been taught that. But then I'm going to show you what the state constitutions our forefathers created to lock this stuff down. Article 9, Arizona Constitution. Let's see what it says. Public debt, revenue, and taxation, right? Now, one of the things they never do is tell us what should be exempt from taxation. But I'm going to show you today that this whole thing between commerce and things owned by the people in the private right, as household goods just to take care of their life and family, those things that we buy for ourselves are not to be taxed by any type of freaking tax, regulation, stamp, or any bull crap. And I'm going to prove it. What things are not subject to taxation in Arizona? There shall be exempt from taxation all federal, state, county, and municipal property. Now, how in the world does the government have their property that they got from us be held without tax as a granted authority if the people don't have the power to have their property not be taxed? You can only grant in a constitution what you have. I can't grant Africa to people in America. It's impossible. I don't own it. But how am I giving them the power to not be taxed? Better think about this. Let's go deeper. Property of educational, charitable, and religious associations, PMAs, or institutions not used or held for profit. Oh, this commerce thing again. May be exempt from taxation by law. Property of educational, charitable, and religious associations, 501c3 churches, you slipped. You allowed these people to make you into 501c3 entities when you were already exempt from taxation. They just didn't tell you. So guys, already we see property of educational, charitable, and religious associations are to be exempt, right? But that's not commerce. See, they tell you the difference between the use. Like I told you guys, the institutions not used or held for profit, NRA, they're not supposed to be taxing you because you're using things for private use and not in a commercial nature. You're not gun dealers. Now, you may provide weapons for your people, but you're not a gun dealer. You're not doing this for commercial benefit. Let's go deeper. Public debts, as evidenced by the bonds of Arizona, its counties, municipal, and other subdivisions, shall be exempt from taxation. Now we're going to go to the next level, the part they don't want you to see and don't want you to know across the country. It's about to get heavy. Everybody share this everywhere too, and please like it. I might lose my channel for this. I'll try to get this over on Rumble if God should let me live. I recorded it too, so I can put it on Rumble. But let's look at number 4. This one is going to make your brain explode. All household goods owned by the user thereof. Oh, okay. So if you own something privately and used solely for, here we go. Here's a big word. Here's a big word. Get ready. Non-commercial purposes. What the heck have they been hiding from us? Non-commercial purposes shall be exempt from taxation. Now they're going to say, well, what special thing do I have to do to be exempt from taxation if I have things owned for non-commercial purposes? Should I have to go to the government and get a tax stamp and pay it to not be taxed? Or should I have to let them take my stuff and charge me? No, they're not supposed to be charging you. Things used solely for non-commercial purposes. See, this is the trick about the cars. They'll get your car and tell you that, oh, we got to tax you for it. And they don't realize that they're not differentiating between you and those who are driving commercially. And they won't teach you this. So when you look in the law and you find out what it really says, it kind of blows your mind. So let's look again. It's going to get heavy. Watch this. All household goods owned by the user thereof and used solely for non-commercial purposes. So if I'm not using my car or my gun for commercial purposes, shall be exempt from taxation. And such person entitled to such exemption shall not be required to take any affirmative to receive the benefit of such exemption, meaning I can have it and it's none of your freaking business, government. It is a private situation. You are not allowed. Are into when they started all this mess. Let me show you so we can help you understand really. When they made this gun control, wanted to try to take guns from people, they would have said so. Is my mic cutting out again, y'all? Is it still breaking up? Test, test, test. Is it still breaking up, y'all? This is one of the most important videos ever. Can y'all hear me again? Can you y'all hear me again? I need y'all to share this